All right, what's going on, everybody? You know, I don't typically do reactions on this channel, but since we lent an olive branch off to Steed, he recently completed an 8-minute video. I'm not really sure what it's going to be about, but I have been getting into a lot of conversations with him on Twitter, discussing kind of different and a variety of ideas. And if you know me, I have no problem sharing my ideas. He linked me to the video, so let's check it out together and let's jump into it.
So let's take a step back and talk generally about what the Whispers could be.
Yo, first thing, this song is freaking sick. I forget where the heck it's from. I want to say Final Fantasy VIII, the friggin' witch, whatever the hell her name is. This song is very sick. He does. He gon' say. It's nasty. Okay.
I think we are all in agreement on the fact that one, there are probably souls, right? Or
We're never in agreement, bro. Don't ever say I'm never in agreement.
spirits, which means that they are deceased souls. Roam in the Lifestream. That's what Aerith says in chapter 18. Those are the voices of those who have lived and died on this planet. What Lifestream Black, Lifestream White tells us is...
So first thing, I don't mess with this book. Just know that.
Souls and spirits can be tainted or corrupted in a way. And that is what Sephiroth in the Lifestream Black portions is doing in the Lifestream after the end of the original game, right?
So when the people who were trying to escape or those left unable to do anything but stand still were enveloped by those streams, he decided to leave them with his stigma. The woman discovered that there was a growing number of spirits within the Lifestream who refused to be absorbed by it. While they were different from the man spirit, they rejected the Lifestream due to the same emotion, hatred. Their feelings towards the planet were steeped in hatred, just like that man's, referring to that man's being Sephiroth's. Sephiroth rejected joining the Lifestream. He decided to leave them with his stigma. Those who reject or those who gave up on life also get the stigma, which is why we see Cloud and other people have geostigma, deteriorate, die. Cloud at the church, he has the stigma, and essentially because he's given up on life again because he's freaking depressed again. And he's finding a reason or can't find a reason to overcome the current situation that he's in.
He is trying to taint those spirits with anger, with corruption, just, turning them black, basically. What it appears to be here is that the majority of the spirits that we are fighting within this specific segment, which is, well, I think just the majority of Remake, are actually spirits which might have already been corrupted or in the process of being corrupted, right? Let's not even think about what Beagle is and what the Beagle world is and all this kind of stuff. Let's just talk about the Whispers again. So spirits being corrupted, and it does seem from the imagery, from, the purple color coding. It's heavily Jenova Sephiroth coded.
Okay, everybody listen. Let's go back to, okay, it's Jenova. The main difference between me and other people is it seems like a huge difference. I make it seem like it's a massive difference, but it's not that huge. But it's still, for me, the details, the devil's in the details. So I'm of the belief Sephiroth was corrupted by Jenova. In the Ultimate Omega, it tells us that Sephiroth, all the times we see Sephiroth until the Northern Crater, the Ultimate Omega tells us that is actually Jenova. I don't believe Sephiroth ever had full control of Jenova, even though the Ultimate Omega says, in a part, we now knew that Sephiroth was the one controlling Jenova. I don't believe that. I think that's flawed logic. I think that the hierarchy, if the queen bee captures the young one, you can never be better than the queen bee. Hercules will never defeat Zeus. And I don't get into the Star Wars stuff of Darth Sidious, and then he killed his master. No, he killed his by sneak attack, deception. That's not what Sephiroth's doing. Sephiroth is being manipulated ever since he was a child because Jenova needs all the people who have her cells to have their reunion, to gather together, to become the full human being at the end, where she will be revealed as the big bad. Sephiroth will snap out of his manipulation, and even if he does all the things where we see him in the evolution and whatever, in the end, Sephiroth is going to be like, what did I do? I shouldn't have done this. However we get to that point, doesn't matter. So the difference is, I believe that Sephiroth was never controlling Jenova. And they believe that Sephiroth and Jenova are kind of the same being, and Sephiroth and Jenova are controlling all the elements. Essentially, when you see any of the Jenova clones, you could switch it out and say Sephiroth. So they use Sephiroth interchangeably is the word I'm looking for. Sephiroth is Jenova, Jenova is Sephiroth. But the main thing for me is that they never show us that. If in the new game, they would show us that when Sephiroth and Jenova's head fell into the Lifestream, and then after they merged together, and you see him kind of like absorb the head into his body, then I'd be willing to even think about the idea of, okay, yeah, it definitely is Sephiroth. But just so you know, the Ultima Omega tells us that all the clones, the clone that killed Aerith, the clone that shows up on Costa del Sol, the clone that's at the Forgotten Capital, the clone at the Northern Crater when we go the flashback at Nibelheim with Sephiroth, all of that is Jenova, and it's very clearly told to us in the Ultima Omega. That's my general perspective. Jenova killed Aerith. Sephiroth didn't kill Aerith. It tells us very clearly that clone was a Jenova clone. So that's the main difference between my perspective and their perspective. Just so if you're ever wondering, oh, aren't you guys saying the same thing? We are, but we are not at the same time.
You know, the purple color coding, it's heavily Jenova Sephiroth coded, especially Jenova coded, by the way, because for Sephiroth, the possibility of having two Sephiroths is something that kind of throws another curveball at what we're discussing here, right? So if these are entities or these are spirits that are being Jenova tainted or corrupted, then it makes you wonder, what fate would they be protecting? Why is the fate of the planet being presented with these whispers, which are very Jenova coded? So again, here we need to take another step back, which is, what is the fate of the planet? And actually another step back, which is, what is the planet? What
We're going to take so many steps back. We're going to be fucking walking to the wall.
is the Lifestream, right? So if the Lifestream is made up of memories of everything that has ever lived on the planet and returns to it, let's not even talk about future visions. If today the Lifestream is made up of memories of all of those who have lived on the planet up to that point, then the planet doesn't know what the fate is. The souls and the memories they have, and the dreams and the knowledge of the spirits which are possibly stuck within the Lifestream is what dictates the fate of the planet. What if those spirits are now corrupted by Jenova? What fate would the planet think is the right fate?
So this is a very kind of, this is a very philosophical, very deep conversation. I'm going to lose a lot of people on this, but if we're going into this idea, what is fate, what is past, what is present, what is future, it's a very kind of esoteric topic, but there's no such thing as time. And I know what you're going to say. Aren't you wearing an iPhone watch? What do you mean there's no such thing as time? Time is a metric that human beings invented to be able to have a standard of calculation of universal acceptance of where we are at what point in time. But it isn't the year 2025. It's just from one day, a very special day, something happened, and then after, all the calendars were changed. We could be in the year 6,005,100,000,000 jillion, and you would know no different, because there was a decision made that this is the year. But it's not the real. You think it's not the real year 2025? Even just look at a history book. Oh, the year 2025, but then we use 6,000 years before that. So is it really the year 8,000? You know what I mean? So it's just, time doesn't exist. I know clocks exist to keep track of time, but time itself is always ever folding on itself. It's like an infinity eight. Nothing you see is the present. Everything you see, even looking at the mirror, for the light to get to the mirror, for you to look at yourself in the mirror, is delayed. So everything you're seeing is a delay. So you're always kind of in the past, and the present is the future, even though we're never really in the present. Anyways, I should just put some links to these kind of, because it's a deep thought thing. And when you kind of talk about it, you sound like you're insane unless other people have kind of read into it and they understand what you're talking about. So I don't follow this generic view of time as, well, we only have up until today because everybody who's died, they can't go into the future, but it's like, it's misunderstanding. Go watch Interstellar. It's misunderstanding the idea of time. Time is different close to the sun versus it is now. If you put somebody close to a black hole, even though they have the same time on their clock, time doesn't work the same way everywhere. So it can't be used as universal. I'm done talking about this.
saw the flowers dying in the intro. We saw, well, basically a world that is dying, a planet that is dying. Sephiroth comes and tells Cloud and all this kind of stuff. You have Shinra using all the Mako, and eventually you have this corruption in the background. Then does change in fate become a problem? Is change in fate a problem now? I don't think it is, because changing the fate of the planet becomes actually saving the planet from death. When you defeat the Whispers, the first...
So his logic here is sound. It's consistent with what he's saying. It makes reasonable, even though I disagree with, like, I could see how you would come to this conclusion with the argument. It's presented very well.
This time, the three Whispers in the chapter 18, and then the Whisper Harbinger, there's an explosion and then white light, and then you are above the water, right? And so it's almost as if you purified that space, whatever it is, from the darkness that was choking it, right? So those are the corrupted spirits controlled by Jenova that were kind of taking over the Lifestream. What happened when you beat that representation is that it essentially removed that whole layer, and now you had a bit more of a open space, let's say. And so you could basically summarize it to Jenova, the Harbinger.
Yo, first, also, man, this guy's accent, he's for sure French. I know he told me he's not French. He's for sure French. Parce que je parle français aussi. And I could tell the accent. But this also goes into another philosophical kind of discussion that needs to be had more often, but that you will not like where the ending up of this discussion goes. A lot of people view good and bad in the West as we want more good, you don't want bad. But the thing about the world, the thing about life is that if you read the book Power versus Force, you'll see why good and bad occur together. You cannot separate them, or you throw everything off balance. The world needs balance. Even when they say chaos is really balance, if you look at chaos theory, the world needs balance. The everflow of Lifestream, it needs balance. You cannot have one without the other. A good person who dies goes into the Lifestream. A bad person who dies goes into the Lifestream. You cannot separate the two, because there is always the idea that yin and yang, even with the white half circle, there's a little bit of darkness. And in the dark people that are considered bad, there's also a white spot showing that there is some good in it. And this comes to a whole philosophical kind of discussion, as well as ideologies. Which ideology is willing to hear other opinions, which is not? If you don't have a moral framework or a moral foundation, how can you then determine that what somebody else as an individual is doing is right or wrong? If you don't have a foundation in God, in Jesus Christ, you cannot say logically that somebody else is right or wrong, because you're just using your subjective or objective or subjective idea to determine what you think is right and wrong. But if that person is using the same subjectivity to say, no, what you think is wrong, let's say drinking 10 of these a day is bad, but someone says, no, drinking 10 of these is good. You don't have a moral framework for argument to determine what is good, what is bad, unless you have a hierarchy established in a foundation, a God moral foundation that tells us what is right from wrong. And I know there's often the argument about this philosophically, but you need to spend more time looking at it, because moral subjectivity is a failed logic.
The Whispers, representations of the future of the planet of Cloud, personally, were infesting that specific space, and then we killed them, and it's now a bit more open. Sephiroth is still there, and you still had to kill him, which is when the big explosion happens, which is now when dreams can happen. So dreams were kind of shut down because of the corruption, right? But then once that big explosion happened, you had the possibility of dreams being opened.
So the dreams were kind of suppressed because of the negative effects of the corrupted souls. Okay.
Why you have the Zack Terrier dream world. That is why you now have all of these deviations. Can we then go back and apply the same logic to the original game? And this might be a stretch, but can we actually say that the fate of the planet in the original game was death, was to fade? When you had Shinra still using all the Mako, when you had Jenova lingering in the background, it's very clear that it was not presented this way in the original game. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's not be let's not pretend that at any point we were shown this
I agree with
very
that.
clear narrative that, hey, the planet is dying, let's save it by changing fate, right? And
Yeah, I agree the game wasn't presented that way. And also this becomes, I'll get into it a little bit after, I want to hear more what he says, but
the original game, I am sure you can find some subtext, you can find some references, you can find some things between the lines where you really can, it just, you know,
Make an
it
argument.
goes hand in hand with that. It's consistent with it. However, you're not going to go back and find something like, let us defy destiny together, Cloud.
Yeah,
Absolutely
yeah.
not. But is it consistent with what we know about the OG? Is it consistent with the personalities and objectives of Aerith and Sephiroth? I personally think that this vision is extremely consistent with it, because Aerith has always been about protecting life, protecting the planet as a whole, not just, you know, the planet is also a sum of the spirits that
okay, I have to say it. So again, here philosophically, this goes with ideological frameworks of foundations. So that's why I always, when I talk about Final Fantasy VII, it's not just about Final Fantasy VII. It's not just about the game. It's really about life. And some of the things that come out is that through video games like this, it makes it seem, even though that's not, if you go look at the interviews with the directors, they meant to create every character that has a flaw. Like Barrett, initially he's like, let's destroy Shinra, let's whatever, we'll do whatever we have to do, bombs the reactors, ends up killing a whole bunch of innocent people. Essentially, Barrett is a terrorist. And then after Shinra gets revenge, they crush the plant, they crush the plate falls, kills everybody, kills a lot of people in Sector 7. And Barrett then blames himself. And then finally, when you see him at the airship, and he's like, I actually found a reason to fight for. I realized that I can't just be fighting for revenge. I realized that because he's realizing, I can't just do revenge, because then they do revenge, and then I do revenge, and then they do revenge, and it creates creates a circle of never-ending destruction. And the main thing here that I want to talk about, because it's something that actually I saw maybe Steed get into an argument with Schrodonger, who obviously I disagree with on politics completely, and I think that his ideology has completely failed, and it doesn't have any reasoning. And anyways, it's that this idea that you can have good things. It's kind of exactly what I was talking about. You can have good things without bad. You can't have that. You cannot have that. We cannot be where we are today in 2025 without all the death, destruction, plague, slavery, innovations that came from those, cotton gin. We cannot have where we are today without all the bad stuff that happened. And they kind of want to, in their mind, they could see like utopias happen without all the destruction. So for Shinra, because I just want to talk, because when he was talking about, Shinra's using all the Malcolm and is going to, it's technology. It's just technology. We have gas-powered vehicles. Eventually, we're going to electric. That reduces CO2. Eventually, we're going to find maybe water-powered. That reduces the electricity and the mining that happens to slave children in Africa to get the nickel, cobalt, everything it takes to build a battery. Eventually, we're going to maybe use water. Then we might have another problem. Oh, well, we can't use water. We can't do this, because of that. You cannot have a healthy Gaia without this part of the Shinra company. Because the next stage, because they always, when they talk about Shinra, they never talk about Neo Midgar. They never talk about that idea of, okay, it's not going to be wasteful, it's not going to be power plants, it's not going to be harmful. It's just that they're stuck in that era now, so they have to see it as bad. It's like if you were stuck in the Middle Ages and you had to go friggin' hunt a chicken and eat a chicken leg, and you made beer still in friggin' mud holes like they did in the olden days, and there's rat plague everywhere, you would think this sucks. The Shinra age timeline that they're just in that middle age stage. And what comes out of that, the Enlightenment and other ideas. And I don't really want to talk Enlightenment because I'm a post-Enlightenment, pre-Enlightenment thought thinkers, ideas. I'm definitely a pre-Enlightenment thinker, because I think post-Enlightenment made people move religion and just filled it with science. And now they think science is their new religion, which is the same. Anyways, just to say, they never talk about Neo Midgar. They always just talk about where we're at right now, and we need to stop it. It's like if you want to lose weight, the first week, you might gain some pounds, you might lose, you might quit, you might not, you might be like, F this sucks. And then eventually you lose the 10 pounds. Okay, then maybe you gain 5. Then eventually you lose 5 more, 10 more, 20 more. You get to where you want to be, but it does take good, bad, and struggle to get to where you ultimately must be. A lot of content creators, they can't see that. Historically, they're just stuck in a time period where Shinra's at a crossroads. It'll either go and become the healthy Neo Midgar vision of the future, where they're able to reduce all the harm and they're able to give people long lasting lives, or they're going to go through, pollute the whole world, use up all the Mako, and destroy everything that's going on. And on a super side note, and I know I'm just talking like side note this and side note that, if you look at Glenn and Rufus and the Magnus Materia and the agreement that Rufus made with Glenn in Ever Crisis First Soldier, you'll see that Rufus and Glenn agreed to go to war with Wutai and with Midgar. And their overall grand idea is we need to kill more people so that their souls go into the Lifestream so we could fuel the reactors and fuel the future technological advances for the city. And I know you probably never even thought about looking at it like that, but I won't put videos in this because it's a reaction video, but I have a whole 3-part series about the Magnus Materia, Rufus, Glenn, all that stuff. But yeah.
That live within it and their lives and memories and so on. And Sephiroth has always been about, you know what? I am an ancient. I am the worthy ruler of these realms. And so I need to absorb everything and become one with the planet. And now everything is death. And nothing matters anymore in the planet.
But same thing here. I don't think that Sephiroth's plan is that. I think that's Jenova's plan. Sephiroth only changed his whole view of life when he decided to follow Jenova's plan. When he's at OG at the Temple of Ancients, he tells us very clearly, Mother, soon we will be one. Meaning that her ideas are merged into his being. And remember, we only see the real Sephiroth at the Northern Crater. Everybody before the Northern Crater is a Jenova copy clone being controlled by Jenova. From the storybook, what the story tells us. I know he disagrees with that, but that's what the story tells us.
Planet is saved. This is consistent with both Remake and the OG. You could still consider this as something that has been added and expanded on, but it's not something that would necessarily mean that this is a different story, that this is going to end differently. This is really my biggest problem with if the Whispers are there, then this can't possibly ever be the same game. Well, we have just seen a possibility where it could be the same game.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. Even though I think they're changing the game, I agree 100% with what kind of he's saying. Because if you remember in the original game, you can go to certain parts of the game, I think with Bugenhagen and in other parts where you listen to the planet and you can hear their screams and they sound exactly like the screams of the Whispers that happens at the end of the edge of the highway. So I was never really like, oh, well, the Whispers are different, so the game must be different. My view of the game is different is for a different reason. But I'm just saying that I agree with his standpoint of the people who argue it's a different game because of the Whispers. I just never really thought that held a whole bunch of weight.
If that fate that we are talking about is actually not that of the OG, is it impossible that when you fight against that fate, and after part 3 ends, and you do what you gotta do, and then you have Red 13 500 years in the future, right? Is it impossible that Red 13, while running, or before doing that, actually goes, oh, now I understand. The fate that we saw there was actually not the bad ending. It was always the fate of the planet. What we really fought was Jenova and Sephiroth taking control of that fate. Would this really be completely, I don't know, unreasonable?
I like that idea, yeah.
I guess, it really depends on where you stand today. So if your stance today is, no, the story clearly told us we are changing AC because it's a bad ending, then you're never going to find anything that satisfies you because the story is never going to tell you that and pay it off.
To get people interested and give players the motivation to play through it again, we needed to change Final Fantasy VII and add new elements to make Remake what it should be rather than just sticking to the original. If you play right through to the end, it will link up with Advent Children, so you don't need to worry about that. My whole view on this statement is, yes, they're making changes. Yes, we might go into Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. I just think that what they're giving us is, I don't really want to give too much away of what I think about this, but my whole view is that I think this is tongue-in-cheek. It's a play on words because Nomura can't really come out here and tell us, yeah, it's a different game, because you end up losing monetarily the people who want the original remake, the people who want something similar to the original ending, but with maybe small changes at the end where Aerith survives or Cloud falls in love and all these other things that I think are not super important to the plot of what they're trying to tell us about overcoming depression and fighting through your hatred and forgiveness. Like, I think those have a way bigger impact than like, oh, the love story and like whatever. But I think this is tongue in cheek. And I think that when they keep saying this, oh, it's gonna link up with Advent Children, it's gonna link up with Advent Children. Yes, one of the timelines will link up with Advent Children because one of the timelines is the original Final Fantasy VII. So that's why I think it's tongue in cheek. We're not playing this original timeline. We are playing the timeline where, well, what I argue is the main timeline where Zack is alive. That's what we're playing. The dream world where Zack can grab the black feather and it doesn't disintegrate, and he can grab the white feather and it doesn't disintegrate, and Angeal has a white feather and Sephiroth has a black feather. That's the main. The cellular degradation happens in Zack's timeline, doesn't happen in Cloud's timeline. All that stuff is like, okay, well, if they're talking about this, it's because they have the original From Crisis Core Reunion. That's if they have Cisne, it's from Crisis Core Reunion. If they have this, it's from Crisis Core Reunion, if they have that. So I'm not really a big believer in this whole Cloud is living the main timeline. My whole original theory and original thought was when that all this is in Cloud's head. I know people are going to hate that. And Cloud, this whole timeline that he's created is this fictional view of reality, future of his life that happened. I know people say, oh, well, how can you do this if you never met this person and met this person? How did he do that? Just go watch the movie Inception.
When we're asleep, our mind can do almost anything.
In Inception is exactly what's happening in Final Fantasy VII.
In a dream, our mind continuously does this. We create and perceive our world simultaneously, and our mind does this so well that we don't even know what's happening.
The first level is reality, they're on the plane. Second level is like they go to like some Chicago downtown city to get into a firefight. Third level, they go to like that ice village, whatever. That's exactly what we're seeing. Well, how could you talk to people and have interaction? It's because your subconscious, they explain in Inception, your subconscious feels the people that are there.
We bring the subject into that dream, and they fill it with their subconscious.
So it makes it feel like it's reality. When you wake up, you only know it's a dream once you wake up. So my whole thing was Cloud is too Mako poisoned. He can barely walk ever since the ending of Final Fantasy VII original, and especially after Crisis Core. And my whole view is Zack can't die to bullets. So I don't even care. Soldiers can't die to bullets. I don't care. Glenn doesn't count as a soldier. Glenn's PO soldier, not even active type. So soldiers can't die to bullets. Holla.
In part 3, I think we have seen enough evidence from them that, hey.
But to make sure it doesn't become stale and people know exactly where it's going, that it doesn't just follow the original word for word, and we add in extra elements which add a little bit of doubt. Getting the right balance of that is so key. Ultimately, we're not trying to change the Final Fantasy VII story into something really different. The overall balance wouldn't really allow for that anyways. So the reason why I argue that, even if it's tongue-in-cheek, how come your changes, Fungi? How come your changes you say are going to change this in Sephiroth Redemption arc? Because the end cause is still the same. Jenova dies, Sephiroth dies. So the end is still the same from the original, except for Zack. Zack's alive. So maybe I'm a hypocrite, but
this is not going to end wildly differently, right? If your stance is more like, okay, there are things that could work which were not there in the original. Let's not lie to ourselves, but at the same time are thematic.
What was constantly said to the team was that we must respect the original game. If we were to stray far away from the source material, then people might think this is not Final Fantasy VII that I know. So we tried to follow the original story, but added details that we could not add 20 years ago using the latest technology. With that, we were able to focus on enriching the story to create an experience that's still the Final Fantasy VII that I know, but with a lot more new things waiting to be discovered.
Consistent and do not bring in, a fundamental contradiction within the story itself. Then you could be open to that and say, okay, this makes sense. And they could still resolve it that way. Does this work or not? Right? It's a possibility. Probably a few things which are not correct there, but I think it still works.
So overall, I think there were some good ideas. I don't agree with the conception of a lot of the ideas, but I understand logically how, Steed, you came to these conclusions and how logically they fit within the reasoning that you're arguing. And that's kind of one of the main things that I like to talk about, is that I'll listen to anybody say what they have to say, as long as logically it follows the framework of logic and reason. So that's what I got today. Hope you guys enjoyed my reaction. Let's see how it goes. Let's see if he likes it. Let's see if he friggin' blocks me on Twitter now because I did a reaction to his video. So catch you guys on the next one. Hey.